Trust and integrity, just two reasons why our next honoree has long-standing working relationships with governors, county officials, law enforcement, and community leaders in Maryland. Go to the story. That's how he works. On the road, calling, knocking on doors, breaking news, and he's been doing it for 40 years.
The whole process only takes a couple of minutes, and when it's done, the bird is set free to continue its migration south.
For nearly 40 years, Brad Bell has been reporting on the stories that matter the most to the DMV.
From the scene, but if you take a look back over here, you can see that it is now crawling with rescue workers.
This proud University of Maryland graduate kicked off his esteemed career with independent network news, then Maryland Public TV covering the State House in Annapolis. After that, several years at WMAR-TV in Baltimore. From there, WJLA.
Police sources say that Oliver's routine included a visit to this thrift shop,
where he's been Maryland's bureau chief for decades, breaking countless stories while maintaining the highest of journalistic standards.
Now we're going to keep working the story. I'm going to get back into those court documents when we...
Brad is a true blue Marylander. He doesn't, I mean, people in Virginia and D.C. might try to claim him, but he's all Maryland. He's a Terp.
Former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, who has faced a barrage of questions over the years from Brad, says the secret to Bell's success is not only his unwavering fairness, his unmatched work ethic, and deep reservoir of knowledge, but the fact that viewers feel like they know him, even if they've never met him.
This is really something.
I guess I knew Brad before he knew me because I watched him on television quite a bit before I got involved in running for office. He's a wonderful guy. He's an institution, and one of the real quality journalists that I've developed a relationship with. He's always fair.
You can see that the bridge rises up to a peak. About halfway up to the peak is where it happened.
I've dedicated myself to what I do here. I think Brad's done the same thing, reporting for this community.
Montgomery County State's Attorney John McCarthy credits Brad for setting the bar on how to cover suburban Maryland as a journalist. In particular, his reporting on how decisions in the state legislature impact everyday Marylanders.
But while applauding the governor's goals, lawmakers quickly came into the hallways after the speech to tell reporters they're not sure all of it can be accomplished.
I trust his professionalism, and I trust him. And I will also tell you, because of his thoroughness, I've learned things about my own cases that were very important, vital pieces of information that he discovered through his reporting.
I'm in Rockville right now. This is one of the other races we're watching. The entire council, the mayor's up for election here.
For some 20 years, retired WJLA photographer John Mann worked side by side with Brad.
People trust him because, number one, he knows what he's talking about.
Among Brad's passions, reporting on the health of Maryland's waterways and the creatures who reside above and below. The water, for as long as he can recall, has been an integral part of Brad's life, one that he shares as often as he can with his family.
He's just a hardworking guy, comes to work every day, gets the job done, goes home to his family at night. That's where he wants to be. And that's why he's been a successful local TV reporter for, I don't know, 35 years.
There is some irony in the use of this boat for this purpose.
Many will quickly tell you, Brad Bell works so hard to inform and enlighten because he fundamentally believes that local journalism matters, and getting it right matters even more.
In Wheaton, Brad
in
Bell.
Bethesda, Brad
in
Bell.
Marlboro, Brad
in
Bell.
Germantown, Brad
in
Bell.
Annapolis, Brad.
On the Chesapeake Bay, Brad Bell, News 7.
Thank you. Well, thank you all. Look, so I've been doing TV a long time. I have the ability to speak for 1 minute and 30 seconds and stop. But I can also go on for about a half an hour. So I'm not sure which one of these nights that it's going to be. My all-time favorite executive producer, Kelly Lamp, showed up tonight. She no longer works with us. And she told me a few years ago that our producers had a saying that once I got going on a live shot and I wouldn't stop, they called it getting your bell rung. So Producers, you're welcome to rap me, but I can't see it because of the lights. You just watched me age before your eyes. And part of the aging is I now have glasses, and I'm doing something that I don't normally do in my live shots, which is I'm writing something down, and I'm gonna go from something that I wrote instead of just ad-libbing. And first, I want to congratulate all the other honorees tonight. I've known some of you a very long time, and I have the utmost respect for you as people and journalists. Don Toms, I saw him earlier, and I said I was going to tell a story about him. So I did work at MPT. It was my first on-air job. I had been up on Capitol Hill as a field producer. It was very exciting up on the Hill. I was in Tip O'Neill's office every day. Tip knew my name. I was running around. It was great. And I got hired my first on-air job at MPT. And I showed up on the day that I was assigned to be there. It was about 40 years ago. And I walked in. You saw how young I was. And I'm here. My name's Brad Bell, and I'm reporting for work today. I'm going to be a reporter on State Circle. And she said, just a minute. And they paged, Brad Bell is here. Nobody came. Nobody came. I'm sitting there in the lobby. I'm wondering, what's going on here? And as 30 minutes goes by, and then finally Don Toms comes out. Do you remember this? You don't. There's no way. That made you 16. So he comes out and takes me to my office because my supervisors, one of whom was in that video for Don, forgot I was starting that day. That was my inauspicious start to on-air local television news. They forgot I was coming to work. And I went down to the basement where my office was at Owings Mills, this half, you guys know there, and there's this half window is up here like that, and I look out and there's vultures circling. And I'm like, what have I done? What I did, and I found out the vultures were because the DNR used to bring all the road pizzas, the roadkill, and drop them there. So what happened that day, Don, in effect, you helped launch my career. Because that put me in the State House, and that was a great spot. Tim and Deborah, look, we've paralleled for a very long time. Tim, I've considered a friend. He hasn't come up yet since we were at MAR together, so congratulations to all of you. And I also want to thank the folks at my table tonight. I don't thank my wife, but she's at a wedding, had to go to tonight, so I'm here with my friends from Channel 7. My news director, Cheryl, my best all-time news director. Roe has made the trip up here. Sam Ford, you talk about legend in the industry, now retired. We worked together for 33 years at Channel 7 and have the utmost respect. Adam Longo has just joined us as a morning anchor from WUSA. I think he's going to do great. Dale, I'm going to talk about in a minute. Oh, wow. Kelly, Sonia stepped out of the room. My assistant news director just couldn't bear to hear me. There she is. She's back over there. I got her lapel pin on. So look, I thought about what I wanted to say this evening, and it came back to the people. So I'm talking about people. And it was mentioned that I started this thing called INN, Independent Network News in D.C. It was an incredible job. Right out of college, a woman named Elvira Ruby, the bureau chief, made me the Capitol Hill field producer at age 21, 22 for this fledgling network. Became Tribune after that. The folks at MPT, who gave me my first on-air gig. The wonderful Lou Davis, who I hope many of you in this room remember, was at MAR. And when we got to know each other at the State House, he told MAR to hire me. Gary Wordlaw was the news director at WMAR who brought me to WJLA. It was part of his hiring package. He said, I'm going to bring this guy down. We're going to do this environment beat. Photographers. I have been blessed to work with so many great photographers, photojournalists, as Cheryl insists we call. These professionals over the years at MPT. There's Tom, Steve, Everett, WMAR, Bill, Jack, George, Pete. There he is. Daryl is back there, who I got to know at WMAR, and he's been at JZ for a long time. He's on the camera tonight. Love that guy. At Channel 7, you know, oh, I forgot Disco. You know, people know Disco at Channel 2. We worked together, Bill Morford. At Channel 7, so many people. Peggy, Marty, John Mann, who you saw there. We put up with each other for about 20 years. together. And now Dale Wright, who you just heard chuckle. Dale and I have worked together every day for about 5 years. I love him like a brother, except when he tells me his computer is having problems. Really great folks, and more producers than I can thank, and a lot of news directors, as I said, the best of all being Cheryl, who nominated me for this honor. I have to admit that I told Cheryl this, and I told some others, that I'm a little embarrassed by this, which I know sounds silly for a TV reporter to say. But I've always felt that the best reward in this industry is the actual doing of the job. I have been able to cover this region for 40 years, which is pretty cool. We saw Larry Hogan. Well, I know Larry. I know Angela Alsobrook. I mean, I know the people. I've covered them. I asked them the questions, and that's just been an incredible gift to be on a daily basis, to be able to field calls to try to help people in some way is a pretty great way to make a living. I get calls all weekend long from people saying, can you do something for me? And most of the time I don't even mention it to the station. I just make a couple of phone calls and see if there's something that can be done. And they say thank you, and that's been a great reward. And I've always said getting a front row seat at the parade of history as it happens is part of the reason I've done this job all these years, and I feel so lucky. I have covered more hurricanes than I can count, although Cheryl, I'm okay if I don't do that anymore. 7 governors, presidential inaugurations dating back to Reagan, 9/11, the snipers. I've done live shots from under the ocean on a volcano. I flew with the Blue Angels. I had 5 years of doing nothing but stories on the environment. My reporting led to changes in laws. I'm proud of that. And yet there is always something new. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb at this point in my life at night. One night this year, I forgot to do that, and it was the night the Key Bridge fell down. And Cheryl called me at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and out the door we go. So there's always something. I never thought I would see a ship knock down a bridge. You do see history in this job. So that's been my reward. I will have a lifetime of stories to tell my grandkids if I can only remember them. I'm not done. I'm still out here working every single day, and though I'll admit things are changing. I used to be able to wear a cummerbund. A couple weeks ago, I chased a cop. There's a cop. She's accused, I'll tell you the backstory, it's a lot of cars, but she's accused of stealing 3 cars. And sometimes who are the good guys, who are the bad guys? I try to treat everybody with respect. So this police officer is accused of stealing a bunch of cars. She walks out of courthouse, and I say, Ms. Alston, is there anything you'd like to say? And she said something, and it was either an insult or a death threat. I'll tell you what it is in a minute. One of our young reporters texted me the next day, and she said, wow, you've made it. Your tweet got shared by the Shade Room on Instagram. So I was like, well, what's that? And she said it's the #1 page on Instagram, and that tweet has been shared now 2 million times. So things are changing. So what she said to me was either, I could cash you, which is the death threat, or you look like a cashew. So you're welcome to Google that and see what it means. And I'm not going to argue with her. She's not wrong. And you're welcome to have a chuckle at my expense. Look, so things are changing, but what we do really has not changed. Good local journalism is not mean tweets. It is not villainization. It's about finding interesting stories, capturing interesting video, and in a truth-challenged time, telling the truth without exaggeration about what is happening, has happened, or to the best of your ability, what is about to happen. It's about finding the facts our community needs to face our shared challenges. And for 40 years, it has been my honor to try to do that. So from the bottom of my heart, I humbly say thank you for recognizing my efforts with this award. So thank you all.